Welcome back to the Street Angel podcast with myself, Angelo Thomas. Okay, so today we are talking about clairaudience or second hearing. I thought I would, keep this one brief, but give you guys just a really quick overview of clairaudience. Maybe might even do a few on the other senses, just to show people or to illustrate to people how spirit communicates with us. And by that I mean angels, passed over loved ones, any beings really. Now, before I get into that, I thought I'd just quickly touch upon my last episode. I took a week off of the podcast, mainly because it was a public holiday in Brisbane and I just found the week was a bit discombobulating. I love that word, discombobulated. I actually had a lady that I used to work with in NT government who hated that word. She said I made it up, but I didn't. So of course I said it more. But anyways, the previous one was around the evil eye, the mati. I just wanted to clarify one thing there, that I have had a lot of people respond to me about that, to what to do with the evil eyes that they have in their house. Now, I just want to clear the record and say that I wasn't advocating for people to get rid of them or to throw them out. It was just more so around, understanding where they come from. Understanding that they have nothing to do with luck and abundance. It's not about protecting you from evil spirits. It's protecting you from people and their ill intentions. But look, like anything, keep the questions coming. Talk to me. There's always going to be people that disagree with me. Haven't had one yet on the evil eye. Maybe because I've been protected by them. I'm not sure. But yeah, I have many evil eyes in my house, in my car, on me at sometimes. It's just know where it comes from. All right, now let's get into clairaudience. Now, this topic came from Penny Curtis, one of my dear friend's mothers, who, my dear friends who are actually, I consider them spiritual mentors, spiritual colleagues, and, we do a lot of work together. But she asked me if I could do a podcast on clairaudience, and in particular how sometimes the angels are very loud. I had to agree with her. Sometimes the angels are incredibly loud and they knock me off my feet. So, let's get into it. I also promised to not talk a mile a minute. I have a habit of that at the moment. Feels like I've just got to get everything out. But let's calm down. All right. Breath. Breathe. All right. So, some people call them spiritual senses. Some people call them clairs. Some people call them your spiritual language. Whatever you want to call them. There's many. Now, the four main ones that many people talk about are clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairaudience. Basically, when you think about it, these are French words or French derived words. But clairvoyance is second sight, le voyant. Claircognizance is knowing, clairsentience is feeling. But with clairaudience, this is the interesting one. This is the one that I find the most fascinating, actually. So, as a born spirit medium, I have probably 80 to 90% clairvoyance. I am incredibly attuned to my clairvoyance, I don't even know if that's a word, attuned to your clairvoyance. But I find it most easy to communicate with spirit through physical sight, either with my eyes or through my mind's eye. My next one is actually clairaudience. So, quickly, what is clairaudience? Now, I'll try and keep this super brief so that way I can give some examples. So, the idea here is that clairaudience means clear hearing, and it's a spiritual ability for people to hear unspoken messages on an audible level. So with clairvoyance, I get them physically, the spirits will poop in and say good day. But with clairaudience, it's that ability to hear actual voices of angels or spirits. Some people consider them ancestors speaking within your physical ear. Now, there is other schools of thought out there that clairaudience isn't limited to hearing with the physical ears. It's, you can also hear within you. You know, that inner voice. There's people out there who are incredibly clairaudient and can hear messages and answers from different sources. So, you know, they might hear a message from lyrics in a song or from a conversation. They might even hear a song from a random memory inside them. You know, there's multiple different ways in which people can be clairaudient, but the general idea and the crux of it is that you hear the message somehow. Much like I can see the message with my physical eye or my third eye, people can either hear it with their ears, their physical ears, or their inner ear. Sometimes even in their heart. There is also the saying that, you know, clairaudient people are drawn to sounds and music, but will often be sensitive to particular sounds or songs that trigger emotional responses. I'm not too sure if that's a bit of a generalization, because being a clairvoyant, I am incredibly drawn to music. I have it on with me 24/7. I know I have like 3 pairs of bloody Apple AirPods. I have Sonos speakers in every single room. And I find that I have to have music around me. Now, read from that what you will. It could be that I'm drowning out spirits' voices and maybe not admitting to my clairaudience as much. Or it could just be that I really love music. You know, as I said, read into it what you want. Now, what I do agree with, you know, in the community around clairaudient people is that they are actually fantastic listeners and make great counselors or therapists, or even just people that you just want to be around. You know, I always feel that when people talk, clairaudient people are able to know whether or not the person is lying or being truthful. Not by what exactly they're saying, but because they're hearing the sounds the person makes. It's the sound of their voice. It could even be the sound of their energy. You know, clairaudient people are incredibly attuned to that. Now, examples of, you know, of clairaudience that I've come across with people who use it as their main form of spiritual connection. I know a lot of people out there use gatekeepers when they do readings. So quickly, a gatekeeper is your spiritual guide or a being of your choice, or who have chosen you, you know, mutually, that acts as an intermediary between you and spirit. So, you know, you sit down, there's a person in front of you, we'll call them Joe. I was going to say Karen then, but there's a negative connotation there about Karens. But, you know, I'll sit there with Joe, whether it could be Joanna or it could be John, you know, Joseph, whatever it is, it's Joe. And I will, you know, as a clairaudient who uses a gatekeeper, I will say to my guide, Maxine, all right, bring them forward. Now, for clairaudient people, when these spirits are brought forward, or when Joe's ancestors are brought forward, the messages are relayed through the guide into their ear. And there's, you know, I think there was a story years ago around some, you know, there's some pretty famous UK mediums who are clairaudients. And it was pretty much known that, you know, they only heard the voice of that spirit guide. It sounded very similar to their own voice. It wasn't different. But, you know, that's their main way of reading. So, you know, the spirit guide would bring forward information that's, you know, what, of an evidential manner. You know, the names, you know, that you had a grandmother named Jenny. She passed away from a heart attack at 83. You know, she used to like Lavender Rose Royal Dalton cups or something like that. The person would never see the message. It would always be given to them audibly in the ear. So that's an example of how clairaudients use their gifts predominantly in readings. Whereas myself, I would actually see those spirits, you know, around the person as outlines, and then using my mind's eye, actually see postcards where I would see the person's face. You know, it's a bit harder because sometimes I'd have to actually make them write down their name or give me a guess to their age, and you know, I'd see the Royal Dalton cups that they were referring to being used, and it's you know, it's tricky. Some people think that clairvoyance is the best one. It's the easiest one. But I always say, you know, seeing sometimes isn't believing. Your eyes can deceive you. That's why I was really interested in sharing with you about clairaudience, because it's something that I would love myself to develop further to assist me with my readings as opposed to my channelings. Now, there's a lot of people out there that say, well, you know, what's some examples? What's some stories about your clairaudience that has gone haywire? Well, the funny thing is, though, is that I use clairaudience nowadays for everyday stuff. And it was only last night what was I doing? I was cleaning up my bedside table, and there was this huge shungite tower that I keep next to it to negate the energies of, again, my Sonos that I have next to it. I've also got a selenite lamp, I've got my phone, and it's just considered that shungite is really good to absorb that radiation. And I was saying out loud, sorry, I can't talk now, to Ed, is that maybe I should move this. There's too much stuff on my actual bedside table. It's weird. Those dings are actually from Ed. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my ears just started ringing really loudly. And I was like, right, okay, they want me to keep it there. And I said, well, I've got to keep it there. They want me to. Anyways, later that night, I realized why they wanted me to keep it there. And that was because there was a hell of a lot of energy going through the place. At one point I woke up around, 1 or 2 a.m. and I actually said out loud that there's just so much spirit energy outside this room, and thank God I've got my my gatekeepers. And that shungite was actually really helping me stay grounded in the space and in the room. So, that's an example of where they really assist you. Now, there's, that's the basics of clairaudience. I've really got to turn this dinger off. It's ironic, isn't it? I'm talking about clairaudience, and there's dingers going on for the first time on my podcast. But so yeah, clairaudience, second hearing. That's one of the many spiritual senses that people can utilize to communicate with spirit. It's pretty much I would say for me, it would nearly be my second one, but I do think that, claircognizance and clairsentience are just as interesting. But anyways, clairaudience, it's a bit of a contentious one. And the reason is because coming from that conversation between Penny and myself around, talking about the buzzing, the noise, the really loud when the angels yell. I see so many people on social media have arguments around whether or not, when you hear a really loud noise in one of your ears, it's like incredibly piercing. People say, oh, that's bollocks. It's just tinnitus. I can't even say that word. Tinnitus. Now, I will tell you this. Similar to clairvoyance, where I see lights, I see spirit, I see things around me. I know my retina is not detaching. I have had my sight checked many years ago. I have perfect 20/20 vision. It's one thing that I pride myself on. Hearing, less so. And that is because that all those years that I lived in Sydney and would catch City Rail trains to school or to work, is I would have my earphones on and they would be blasting. Now, I do have a constant dull form of tinnitus at times that you can very much tell that it's tinnitus. You're sitting in a dark room and you can just hear that sound constantly. I get that. There's a scientific reason behind that, and that's why I've stopped. I now have over-the-ear headphones, and I now have my Sonos on, volume control. It is completely different to when you get those downloads from angels and when they nearly knock you off your seat. It's almost like the difference between when you have an aura headache or an aura migraine and you see colours of an aura around a person. There's no way I see auras around people all the time, but that's not to say that I constantly have an aura migraine, because I'd be dead. It would just knock me out. So, I am a strong believer that yes, that angels do give you that piercing ring in your ears, and that is yet again a form of clairaudience. Now, why do they do that? How does it happen? Basically, what I've been told from the angels and from other people who've experienced it is that it's all about energy. It's all about vibration, frequency. Without getting too much into, 5D, 3D and all that, we're basically very physical creatures. We're here, again, because of people's obsessions with clairvoyance, we're very sight-driven. If something's not in front of our face, we don't pay attention to it. So, enter the angels, very high-frequency, energetic beings. incredibly high up there. We can't hear them with our normal ears. We can't see them with our normal eyes. So they come shattering down at high pitch to get our attention. Sometimes it does feel discombobulating. I'm just going to keep saying that word now. Other times, it's less so because you know that you're in a situation where you just can, all right, I'm going to have to get it downloaded. In it comes, and you get fallen off your seat. I always say to people, when this happens, quickly write down, you can do it on your notes, in your phone, you can do it on a piece of paper. Write down, what were you thinking? What came to you? What situation were you in? What was happening? Don't give too much thought to it straight away, but start to develop a pattern. Also, yes, check it. Go and talk to a doctor and check if you do have mild tinnitus, so that way you can rule out that. But once you've ruled out that and you can see this pattern, you can actually realize that, the angels are giving you messages. Now, messages like this aren't always love and light. It was only, I think it was last week actually, an example of this happened where I was walking around West End in Brisbane with a friend, and we were going to all different kinds of op shops. And we saw out of the corner of our eye there was this yellow cottage that was a spiritual shop of some nature. Now, I'm not too much of a fan sometimes of spiritual shops, mainly because I've been asked to do readings in a lot of them, but I just feel like there's too much going on in them. It's kind of like how I really don't want to do readings or healings in the Psychic Expos place. I just feel there's too much. So anyways, my friend said, come on, let's go and have a look. They might have some cards there or some crystals. It'll just be fun. I'm like, you know what? Why not? As I was walking towards this shop, I would have got probably 2 to 3 meters away from the entrance. And out of nowhere, the pressure in my ears intensified. Like it didn't even go from 0 to 100. It went from 0 to bloody 250. And it was just piercing sounds. To explain it to someone who hasn't experienced it, it sounded like 1,000 angels screaming, like high-pitched screams, cries, and I couldn't move. I just froze dead there and just said to my friend, I can't go any further. I'm getting a warning just to stop. She actually saw me. She kept walking. Homegirl was gone. But she turned around and saw me, and it was like there was this invisible force stopping me from entering or going any further. Now, she asked me, are you okay? What's wrong? And I was explaining that basically my ears were about to burst because there was just these thousands of voices coming and just yelling at me. And I took one step back. They just stopped. And I was just like, beep that. I don't want to swear because I want to keep my Apple Clean rating. But I actually said beep that. And I just took it as a warning that I'm not supposed to go into that space. Probably because, like I say, there's just too much energy in those spaces. There's lots of... I'm not a fan. Maybe I'll just stop it there. I'm just not a fan. Now, I have known people, many people throughout my encounters with them in, spiritual workshops, in readings and healings, who have shared similar stories. I know that there's this one dear lady who I'll keep her name anonymous, but she shared with me recently, again, a story where, and she's very connected to Archangel Michael. I always see that blue indigo around her. She was telling me a story recently that happened quite a while back, where they were out a night in town, and I am paraphrasing this, so I might get some details wrong, but, bear with me. But basically, they were out in town and they were walking home one evening, and they heard I can't remember if they heard their name or the word hide. I think it was the word hide, just to hide. And, they had a few bits to drink like we all do, and her friend was thinking it was a game. But Lady X, we'll call that, she grabbed her friend and just hid behind a bush, hid behind something. And lo and behold, within seconds later, there was a car coming up of hooligans, drug hoons, absolutely going off their tits. And, the point at which she hid gave her enough time to then run in the opposite way. So she jumped out of the bushes, ran the opposite way. These people saw her turn around the car and chase them. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that she'd heard the words and her name and the words to hide, she wouldn't have got a head start. They would have pretty much collided with each other in the road. But because she heard that, it gave her that running chance, and she actually got away and said to me, she's never been so scared in her life because these people were drunk, they were being obnoxious, who knows what would have happened. And the angels were looking out for her that night. I personally feel it was Archangel Michael because, like I said, I've seen pictures of her with Archangel Michael around. I've seen Archangel Michael around her in readings and workshops, and even now I see that. And, nothing happened, which is great. They got away and were able to hide and all that. But it was something that stood with her for a long time. And it's an example of, clairaudience. It's an example where angels are loud and where it's damn real. It was no form of tinnitus that she heard her name and the words hide, and that happened and they got away. It's just another example, guys, that there really is such thing as spirit. There really is such thing as Passover loved ones and angels. I mean, it's real. That's all I'm going to say. It's real. But, like my friend's story with being told to hide, like with my West End example of where I just couldn't move, the angels can become very loud and use clairaudience because sometimes humans are dumb. We are just stupid. We can see red flags. It's always like there's those things, you go into a relationship, all these red flags, and people just blindfold themselves. But the thing is, when you're being shouted at or yelled at, you can't ignore it. And that's one thing that I find is what the angels will use more so than a vision. Now, I'm sure many of you guys out there and many people who are connected have heard their name being yelled. I know that I am constantly yelling out to Ed, did you yell my name? Did you yell my name? She's like, no, shut up. But again, it's because I've got spirits, I've got Passover loved ones, or even angels trying to get my attention, but I'm too damn well stupid. Got my head in my phone, head in my iMac, doing something that I, reading about. What was I looking at today? I was looking at all different recipes for vegetarian or halloumi gyros. And thinking to myself, I could really go some of that tonight. But I should have been doing this damn bloody podcast instead. And, I get distracted like the best of them. But clairaudience or clairaudient messages would probably be one of the best and easiest ways for spirit to actually get through to my thick skull. Now, how can you, I've given the example of what clairaudience is, some stories. Basically how I said the angels, it's their higher frequencies, which is how they get down to us and into our ears. So for any of you guys out there that actually want to develop maybe your clairaudience, I think develop's the right word. It's what I always recommend though is just checking, what are you driven by? So if you, when you put something on, say, a piece of clothing, do you like how it looks? Do you like how it feels? Do you like the compliments you get? Another example is, with your memories. When you go to a concert, do you remember the sounds? Do you remember the smells? Do you remember the sights? So if you are a hearing person, you remember sounds, sounds self-evoke memories. You remember the crowd, you remember the particular song that really got you going, or, with a certain memory you have in childhood and you remember the birds singing. Now, there's multiple different ways, but let's just say that you're an audient person. I would say to you is that the best way to start to develop your clairaudience is probably doing simple things like, not meditating or anything like that, but is finding moments where you can go into nature. Say you can be sitting in your backyard, you can be sitting in a park, anywhere really. A beach is another really good one. And close your eyes and just listen. Now, when you listen, don't necessarily listen with your ears. Don't have any music going or anything like that. But just listen. Listen to everything around you, the sounds. What sounds stand out? If it's the waves that are standing out over birds or people, write down, what do the waves make you feel like? How do you feel? hearing these waves. If you're out in nature and all you can hear is birds, but then all of a sudden you start hearing, maybe just some crickets. Again, focus in on them. What does the cricket mean? Go on Google what the cricket means with the spiritual, like spirit animal wise. The idea here, and it's like I'm being very rough and quick, but the idea here is that you are learning to listen with your heart and listen with your inner ear to those sounds that spirit wants you to hear or wants to really highlight. And if you do this over time, it means that, you're putting the intention out there to spirit that you're open and receptive to hearing their messages. And, and they will then in turn start sending more and more messages through this method, through sound. Keep a bit of a journal around this. How did you feel? What did you hear? What happened that day? What happened the next day? Also journal down any particular songs that keep coming to you, whether that be in your head or whether, you're walking around, you're hearing the same songs. Spirit will talk to you through those songs. Now, if you're interested in taking that even further, I do know that, there are, the particular angel that is considered to be connected to Clairaudience is Archangel Jophiel. You can have a bit of a Google, a bit of a look up of what they represent. Some crystals out there that, if you're so inclined into crystals, are blue lace agate, blue aura quartz, and angelite. And you'll see that a lot of those blues, and that is because, with Clairaudience, it's very connected to the throat, in between the throat and the ears, which is that, that color there. But again, if you're even more interested in developing Clairaudience skills, like I say to you, I do spiritual development work, or spiritual development sessions more so, where we can really get in there and do some really cool and clear exercises to help you with that ability. So, Clairaudience. One of the spiritual senses, or one of the main 4 spiritual senses. It's up there with clairvoyance, clairsentience, and claircognizance. It's to me, it's one of the clairs that I feel people probably dismiss the most, but don't realize just how powerful it is. Because, like I said, we're very visual creatures. We're very much in our own little worlds, and spirit, Passover loved ones, and angels, they need to get through to us somehow. And they're going to yell, kick, scream, and shout. So, I always say the next time you hear your voice, your name, being called out of nowhere, the next time you have that ear-piercing sound, or the next time you just hear lyrics, or, someone's talking to you and you're sure you're hearing a different sound to what they're saying, take note. Because it could be spirit, it could be your past over loved ones, it could be angels, or even your spirit guides wanting to connect with you. And they'll be persistent. Tell you what, by God, they'll be bloody persistent. So we'll leave it on that. But if anyone out there has any further questions on Clairaudience, has any thoughts or even stories that they wish to share, pop them on the YouTube channel or even on the various posts when I'll eventually post this. Remember to also like and subscribe to the podcast, so that way you'll know when new episodes come out. And to follow me on Instagram at @AngeloThomas, or on Facebook, Angelo Thomas Medium, to find out some more about, I might share some more little Clairaudience stories, or even be notified when I talk more about the other spiritual senses. So thanks for that, and have an awesome day.